All right, let's get right into it. Today, we're going behind the yellow tape to explore the real world of forensics. We're going to separate the Hollywood hype from the actual hard science and, the deep psychology that really cracks cases and changes lives. So, let's begin.
Let's be honest, we're all a little obsessed with true crime, right? We binge these shows, we listen to the podcasts, we devour these stories, trying to solve the puzzle right from our own living rooms. It's this whole captivating world of clues and detectives, and of course, those shocking twists. But you know what happens when the credits roll? What's the actual reality for the investigators on the ground? Well, it's often way more complex, and honestly, in a lot of ways, much more fascinating than anything you'll see on screen. So that's what we're diving into. We're going way beyond the hype to explore the two main pillars of modern investigation. First, the super meticulous science of the crime scene, and second, the incredibly intricate psychology of the human mind.
Okay, so let's start with the absolute bedrock of forensic science. It's this one core principle that basically transforms every location into a library of evidence, just waiting to be read.
So way back in the early 1900s, there was this French criminologist, Edmond Locard, and he came up with a totally revolutionary concept. Today, we know it as Locard's exchange principle, and it's pretty much the reason you see crime scene investigators in those full-body suits.
The idea itself is actually super simple, but it's also incredibly profound. Basically, whenever you interact with a person or place, you unknowingly make an exchange. You're leaving tiny, microscopic parts of yourself behind, skin cells, hair, fibers from your clothes, and at the same time, you're carrying microscopic parts of that place away with you.
And this is where things get really cool, because nature itself becomes this incredibly powerful tool for investigators. We're talking about fields like forensic botany, ecology, and entomology. Think about it. Pollen, which is totally unique to specific plants and regions, is practically impossible to remove completely. Insects, they can help pinpoint the time of death, sometimes down to the hour. Even the dirt on a suspect's shoe can link them to a very specific location.
So get this, there was this one remarkable case where a man completely denied being at the scene of an attack. But a forensic ecologist named Patricia Wiltshire analyzed his clothing. And just by identifying specific pollen grains stuck in the fabric, she proved not only that he was there, but she could tell that his left shoulder had brushed against a particular fence and that he had knelt in a very specific patch of vegetation. She was able to reconstruct his exact movements. Incredible.
The science of forensics has really evolved. 20 years ago, finding a fingerprint on a getaway car, that might have been enough for a conviction. But now the question isn't just whose fingerprint is this, it's how did this fingerprint get here? Could an innocent person have just leaned on the car an hour earlier? This shift, this crucial focus on context, on intent, on the why behind the what, that leads us perfectly to our next topic.
Okay, so we've talked about the physical evidence. Now let's move from the stuff you can see at a crime scene to the invisible evidence, the stuff that's inside a person's mind. And this is the absolutely fascinating world of forensic psychology.
So to put it simply, forensic psychology is basically where the legal system turns when it needs a deeper understanding of human behavior. It's all about applying psychological expertise to legal questions to help make sure the whole process is as fair and as accurate as possible.
And this field plays a huge role. Long before any verdict is ever reached, the insights from forensic psychologists can literally shape the entire course of a case.
And their work is incredibly diverse. One day they might be assessing a defendant's competency to stand trial. The next, they're evaluating someone's state of mind for an insanity defense. They also study these powerful and often unconscious cognitive biases that can influence pretty much everyone in the courtroom. Like, think about confirmation bias. That's when an investigator might, without even realizing it, just focus on evidence that supports their first theory and totally ignore details that contradict it.
And what about eyewitness testimony? We tend to think of our memory as this perfect, high-def recording, right? But psychologists have shown it's actually more like a reconstruction. And that reconstruction can get all sorts of distorted by things like stress, the passage of time, or even just how a question is phrased. And understanding that, well, that's absolutely crucial for weighing evidence correctly.
In that same vein, they help us understand one of the most baffling parts of the justice system, false confessions. Why on earth would someone confess to a crime they didn't commit? Well, psychologists can identify the factors, things like coercion, extreme stress, or mental impairment, that can actually lead an innocent person to falsely admit they're guilty.
But, the work doesn't just stop in the courtroom.
For a lot of these practitioners, the most important work they do is actually about what comes next. It's about building a better future, not just getting stuck dwelling on the past.
And this really gets to the heart of it all. It's not just about punishment, it's about rehabilitation. It's about trying to understand the root causes of why someone offends in the first place, and then working to create a future where that person no longer poses a threat to anyone.
And the impact of this work is just huge. They're developing rehabilitation programs inside prisons, they're supporting victims as they try to recover from trauma, they're even running parenting courses for abusive partners to try and break that cycle of violence for the next generation.
And this is where you can see the profound difference they can make. One psychologist told this story about a young man who had denied setting a fire. But after he joined a program, he finally confessed. And he explained that he'd lied because he figured the psychologist would just give up on him. But instead, he said, "She showed me that someone does actually care." That one simple human connection, it changed his life. He was released, and he never reoffended.
So where does all this leave us? We've looked at how science uncovers the physical evidence and how psychology helps us interpret the person behind it. Now let's take a quick look at what's next, at the future of forensics. And believe it or not, the future is pretty much already here. Police forces are starting to use predictive software to try and anticipate criminal activity. And get this, scientists are exploring our microbiome, which is the totally unique community of microbes in our gut, as a new form of identification, just as unique as a fingerprint.
But with all this incredible technology comes a really critical reminder from the professionals who are actually on the front lines. And that reminder is this: the work has to be objective. It has to be unbiased. Because behind every single piece of pollen, every psychological report, and every line of code, there's a real person, and it's their liberty that's at stake.
And so that leaves us with one final, crucial question to think about. As our tools get more and more powerful and our understanding gets deeper, how do we make sure we balance that pursuit of truth with the empathy and the respect that real justice demands? How do we ensure that in our quest for evidence, we never, ever lose sight of the person behind it?